Tonight on First at 9. This Tuesday, the 24th of September 2024. The new authority. A new cabinet of ministers appointed with Dr. Harini Amarasuriya as the new Prime Minister. New secretaries appointed to 15 ministries. Global approval. The International Monetary Fund welcomes the election of the new Sri Lankan president. Assures continuous support for the country's economic recovery. The next battle. Former President Ranil refuses to contest the coming general election. Samagi Jana Balawege rejects the former president's request to reunite with the United National Party. The general election will be held within 66 days of the dissolution of Parliament, affirms the Election Commission. Open case. President Anurukumara Dissanayake promises to recommence investigations into the Easter Sunday terror attacks. Pledges to uncover the truth behind the tragedy. The darkest day. More than 558 people killed in Lebanon in the deadliest Israeli attack in nearly 2 decades. All Sri Lankans residing in the Lebanese capital Beirut are safe, assures the Sri Lankan embassy.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබා ගත හැක.
වැඩිම මනාපෙන් ජනතා තේරීම මෙවරත්.
සුදේශී ඔරිජිනල් කුහුඹම තමයි.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Sri Lanka's premier primetime English news bulletin, Derana First at 9. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and from around the world. In your top story this evening, nationalist parliamentarian of the National People's Power, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, was appointed as the 16th Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. Prime Minister Amarasuriya made history by becoming Sri Lanka's third female Prime Minister after Sirimava Bandaranaike and Chandrika Kumaratunga.
Born on the 6th of March 1970, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya is a Sri Lankan activist and academic who has published books and conducted research on youth, politics, dissent, activism, gender, development, state-society relations, child protection, globalization and development. A product of Bishop's College, Colombo, Dr. Amarasuriya earned a Doctor of Philosophy in Social Anthropology from the University of Edinburgh. After serving as a child protection and psychosocial practitioner for several years, she joined the Open University of Sri Lanka as a senior lecturer in the field of sociology. In 2019, Dr. Amarasuriya joined the Alliance National People's Power and campaigned for its presidential candidate Anurukumara Dissanayake. In August 2020, she made her first entrance to the parliament as a nationalist MP from the National People's Power. 4 years later, following the victory of President Anurukumara Dissanayake in the recent presidential election, she was tipped to be the Prime Minister of the government of the newly elected president. This afternoon, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya was sworn in as the 16th Prime Minister of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. Further, she also entered the history books of Sri Lanka as the country's third female premier after Sirimava Bandaranaike in 1960, 1970 and 1994 and Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga in 1994.
Horizon Campus 2024 Intake 2. Register now.
Meanwhile, the three-member cabinet of President Anurukumara Dissanayake was also sworn in this afternoon. The president also appointed 15 secretaries to cabinet ministries.
Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya was sworn in as the Minister in charge of the portfolios of Justice, Public Administration, Internal Affairs, Provincial Councils, Local Government, Health, Labour, Education, Science and Technology, Women, Child, Sports and Youth Affairs. She will also be the Minister in charge of Trade, commerce, food security, cooperative development, industries and entrepreneurial development. Parliamentarian of the National People's Power Vijitha Herath meanwhile was sworn in as the minister who will oversee the portfolios of Buddha Sasana, religious and cultural affairs, national unity, social protection and mass media, transport, highways, ports and civil aviation, foreign affairs, public security, environment, wildlife and forest conservation. He will also be in charge of the ministries of water supply, plantation and social infrastructure development, rural and urban development, housing and construction. Meanwhile, President Anurukumara Dissanayake will be the Minister of Defence, Finance, Economic Development, Policy Formulation, Planning and Tourism, Energy, Agriculture, Lands, Livestock, Irrigation, Fisheries and Aquatic Resources. Meanwhile, the President also appointed 15 secretaries for cabinet ministries. GP Saputantri was appointed as the Secretary to the Prime Minister, while WMDJ Fernando received the appointment as a Secretary to the Cabinet. KDS Ruwan Chandra was appointed the Secretary to the Ministry of Transport, Highways, Ports and Civil Aviation. Mahinda Siravardhana was appointed the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance, Economic Development, Policy Formulation, Planning and Tourism. Aruni Vijayawardena was reappointed as the Secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The post of Secretary to the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology was handed over to JT M. Jayasundara. K. Mahesan received the appointment letter as a Secretary to the Ministry of Women, Child, Sports and Youth Affairs. M.M. Naimuddin was appointed as a Secretary to the Ministry of Commerce, Food Security, Cooperative Development, Industries and Entrepreneurial Development. Meanwhile, AMPMB Athapattu was appointed the Secretary to the Ministry of Rural, Urban Development, Housing and Construction. Dr. Palitha Mahipala was reappointed as a Secretary to the Ministry of Health. WPP Yasaratna received the letter of appointment as a Secretary to the Ministry of Justice, Public Administration, Internal Affairs, Provincial Councils, Local Government and Labour. Prabhat Chandrakirti was appointed the Secretary to the Ministry of Environment, Wildlife, Forest Conservation, Water Supply, Plantation and Social Infrastructure Development. MPNA Vikramasinghe was appointed as a Secretary to the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands, Livestock, Irrigation, Fisheries and Aquatic Resources. Meanwhile, Ranjit Ratna received the appointment letter as a Secretary to the Ministry of Buddha Sasana, Religious, Cultural Affairs, National Unity, Social Protection and Mass Media. KTM Udayanga Hemapala was appointed as a Secretary to the Ministry of Energy.
Now, the Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, revealed that President Anurukumara Dissanayake has pledged to deliver justice to the victims of the 2019 Easter Sunday terror attacks by uncovering the truth behind the tragedy. The Archbishop also assured that the Catholic Church would provide its support and blessing to President in creating the change Sri Lanka requires.
President Anurukumara Dissanayake called on the Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, last evening at the Archbishop's house in Borella.
I extend my congratulations to President Anurukumara Dissanayake, who was elected to office by the mandate of a majority of Sri Lankans. The people of the country have placed upon his shoulders the responsibility of creating the change the country requires. This may be a burdensome and challenging task. However, we pledge to provide our complete support and blessing to him. We urge him to perform his duties while being mindful of the impoverished people of this country. The President gave us a clear promise that he would exert his maximum effort in investigating the matter and laying a foundation for the truth to be uncovered.
Following his meeting with the Archbishop of Colombo, President Dissanayake visited the Jumma Masjid in Davatagaha, where he invoked blessings.
Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund stated that it looks forward to collaborating with Sri Lanka's newly elected President Anurukumara Dissanayake on the country's economic recovery process. The global lender stated that discussions regarding the timing of the third review of Sri Lanka's IMF-supported program will be conducted in collaboration with the new administration as soon as possible.
The International Monetary Fund emphasized its commitment to working with the newly elected Sri Lankan President Anurukumara Dissanayake and his team going forward. Issuing a statement, the IMF assures to continuously support Sri Lanka in building on the hard-won gains that have helped steer the nation towards economic recovery following the severe economic crisis it faced in 2022. In addition, the IMF commented on the agreements reached in principle with the ad hoc group of international sovereign bondholders, welcoming the agreement, which remains subject to confirmation of comparability of treatment by Sri Lanka's official creditor committee. The IMF noted that the agreement with the bondholders marks significant progress in the country's debt restructuring progress. Furthermore, the IMF reiterated that the timing of the third review of the Extended Fund Facility Program will be discussed with the new administration at the earliest practicable opportunity. Under the $3 billion external fund facility, the third tranche of $336 million was released in June this year following the second review. The fourth tranche is expected to be unlocked by the end of the year.
Now, the European Union says that it is also looking forward to working with newly elected Sri Lankan President Anurukumara Dissanayake and continuing its support for reforms to revive the country's economy. The EU noted that the election observation mission, which was deployed to Sri Lanka to assess the 2024 presidential election, reported that the Election Commission of Sri Lanka conducted the electoral process independently while ensuring transparency at all key stages of the election. The EU Election Observation Mission will soon publish a comprehensive final report on the election, including recommendations to improve future electoral processes.
Issuing a statement on Sri Lanka's recent presidential election, the European Union noted that the people of Sri Lanka demonstrated their commitment to democracy with a high voter turnout at the election which was held on the 21st of September. The EU also highlighted that the presidential election took place in a peaceful manner and in a competitive political environment. Accepting an invitation of the island nation's authorities, the European Union deployed an election observation mission to undertake an independent, impartial and technical assessment of all aspects of the electoral process. The statement noted that this initiative reflects the EU's close cooperation with Sri Lanka on good governance and democracy. The European Union's election observation mission in its preliminary report indicated that fundamental freedom was broadly respected and that the Election Commission of Sri Lanka conducted the process independently while ensuring transparency at all key stages of the election. The statement went on to say that the mission identified areas where progress is needed, in particular, enhancing transparency in political finance and advancing women participation in public and political life. The EU Election Observation Mission is set to publish a comprehensive final report, including recommendations to improve future electoral processes. Noting that Sri Lanka is an important and valued partner of the European Union, the EU added that it looks forward to working with President Dissanayake and continuing its support to Sri Lanka's reforms to bring the country to economic recovery, lasting reconciliation and inclusive prosperity and growth.
The Commissioner General of Elections, Samanshri Ratnayake, stated that the parliamentary election must be held within 52 to 66 days from the day of the dissolution of Parliament. The Commissioner General also highlighted that according to the Election Commission's estimates, the election for Sri Lanka's next Parliament will incur an expense of 11 billion rupees. Meanwhile, it is also reported that President Anurukumara Dissanayake will announce the dissolution of Parliament tomorrow, setting the stage for the parliamentary election.
In the
case that Parliament is dissolved, the Election Commission is obliged to hold an election within 52 to 66 days from the day of the dissolution. The official announcement of the dissolution of Parliament will be released with the signature of the Secretary to the President. The Gazette notification mentions the date of accepting nominations and the date for conducting polling for the parliamentary election. It will also mention the date when the new Parliament will convene for its inaugural session. Legally, we are only able to discuss the parliamentary election after the publication of such a gazette notification. Funds have not been allocated to hold a parliamentary election in 2024. This is because the previous parliamentary election was held on the 5th of August 2020 and the next election has been scheduled for August 2025. However, if the President decides to dissolve Parliament in accordance with the powers vested in him under the Article 150 Clause 4 of the Constitution, obliges him to allocate funds for the election from the Treasury. According to our budget forecast for the year 2025, conducting the election would require 11 billion rupees.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa's Samagi Jana Balawegaya refused former President Ranil Wickremesinghe's invitation for the SJB to reunite with the United National Party to contest the forthcoming general election. Instead, the SJB-led Samagi Jana Sandhana will contest the parliamentary election separately with opposition leader Sajith Premadasa as its prime ministerial candidate. Meanwhile, the United National Party stated that former President Ranil Wickremesinghe will not contest the general election nor will enter parliament through the national list.
Sri Lanka's new President Anurukumara Dissanayake was elected to office following an election campaign that promised clean politics as the country recovers from the economic crisis of 2022, the worst in its history. Accordingly, there has been widespread speculation that the President will dissolve Parliament, paving the way for a general election. Against this backdrop, the supporters of former President Ranil Wickremesinghe convened a media briefing today to reveal former President Wickremesinghe's stance on the impending parliamentary election.
Former President Ranil Wickremesinghe has decided that he will not contest the upcoming general election. He also said that he does not even expect to enter parliament through the national list. As the former president and our leader, he will continue to guide us in future, but he will definitely not contest the parliamentary election. Also, in order to protect the democracy of this country, we hope that all political parties, particularly all parties of the opposition, will join us to form a separate alliance to contest the next election. We propose that the Samagi Jana Balawegaya join us in order to contest this election so that we can safeguard the country's democracy. Following the election, people as well as certain religious leaders demanded the creation of an alliance of these two parties as this is what required by the public. As reflected by the presidential poll, this is the public's desire. Taking all these factors into account, the United National Party extends our invitation to all political parties to join us to contest in the upcoming general election.
In the meantime, the electorate organisers of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya convened a special meeting today at the SJB headquarters in Pitakotte. During the meeting, Sajith Premadasa was unanimously chosen as the prime ministerial candidate of the Samagi Jana Sandhana for the upcoming general election.
කතාබහට ලක් වෙලා තියෙනවා ඔබතුමන්ලා සහ රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමන්ලා එකට එකතු වෙලා ගමනක් යා යුතුයි කියලා ඔබතුමාලේ ආරාධනය පිළිගන්නවද කොහොමද? මන්ද නැහැ මට පණිවිඩයක් ආවා රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්මයා.
I got to know that Ranil Wickremesinghe will not contest the general election and is not willing to enter parliament. How can we enter into discussions with such parties?
ඒ වගේ අයත් එක්ක මම හිතන්නේ සාකච්ඡා කරන්න බෑ. ප්‍රතිඵල විශ්ලේෂණය කරන බොහෝ පිරිස් ප්‍රකාශ කරන කාරණයක් ඔබතුමාට සහ රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමන් එකතු වෙලා ජනාධිපතිවරණයට ඉදිරිපත් වුණා නම් ජයග්‍රහණය කරන්න තිබුණා කියන කාරණාව.
That would be true in terms of numerical value. However, if examined deeply in terms of politics, that would be far from the truth.
ඒක සත්‍යයක් යථාර්ථයක් නෙවෙයි. ඔබතුමන්ලා සමගි ජන සන්ධානයේ විදියටම ඉදිරි මහමැතිවරණයට ඉදිරිපත් වෙනවද නැත්නම් වෙනත් සන්ධානයක් නිර්මාණය කරනවද? නෑ අපි සමගි ජන සන්ධානයේ හැටියට ඉදිරියට යන්නේ.
No, we will contest from the Samagi Jana Sandhana. Those who can relate to our principles are always welcome to join us. These are not political deals. We can move forward if those who join us accept our principles.
ප්‍රතිපත්ති පිළි අරගෙන ඒ තුලින් ඉදිරියට යන්නට යම් කිසි පුද්ගලයෝ ඉන්නවා නම් ඒකේ කිසි බාධාවක් නැහැ. ඒ හැර නිශ්චිත වශයෙන්ම රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ ජනාධිපතිතුමා මෙවර ඉදිරිපත් වෙච්ච කණ්ඩායමත් එක්ක එකතු වීමක් සිදු වෙන්නේ නැද්ද? දැන් රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්මයා ඉදිරිපත් වෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා තියෙනවා නේද? එතුමා නැතුව කොහෙද අනිත් අයට තැනක් තියෙන්නේ?
Didn't Ranil Wickremesinghe say that he will not contest the general election? How can the others have parliamentary seat if he himself does not? All electorate organisers and ministers of the SJB unanimously appointed me as the prime ministerial candidate of the SJB-led alliance. They are willing to move forward in this journey under my leadership.
සියලුම මන්ත්‍රීවරුන් ඒකමතිකව මට යෝජනා කරා අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය අපේක්ෂකවරයා හැටියට මැතිවරණ ව්‍යාපාරය මෙහෙවන්න ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න මගේ නායකත්වයෙන්.
Meanwhile, Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna held a meeting today regarding the results of the presidential poll and their preparation ahead of the general election.
මහමැතිවරණයේදී අපි වෙනම සඳහන් කරන්න ඕනේ.
මේ එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ සන්දානයක් හදන්න හදන පුළුල් සන්දානයක් ඒකට ඔබතුමාලා එකතු වෙනවද?
නෑ අපි එකව වෙන්නේ. මේ අපේ කණ්ඩායම කියනවා එපයි කියලා.
කියලා කිව්වද?
ඔව්.
Meanwhile, Israeli strikes on Lebanon killed more than 558 people, including more than 154 women and children, in the deadliest Israeli attack on the Middle Eastern nation since the 2006 Israeli-Hezbollah war. The Sri Lankan embassy in Lebanon confirmed that the 7,600 Sri Lankans residing in the northern and central regions of Lebanon's capital Beirut are safe. Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan embassy in Israel requested Sri Lankan nationals residing in Israel to exercise caution due to recent shelling and rocket attacks from Lebanon-based militant group Hezbollah targeting Israel.
Lebanon's Ministry of Public Health said today that at least 558 people have been killed, including 50 children and 94 women, and at least 1,835 wounded in intense and wide-ranging Israeli airstrikes targeting Hezbollah in Lebanon in the deadliest day of conflict there in almost 20 years. Israel struck Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon, while the Iran-backed group attacked military facilities in northern Israel. Hezbollah said it targeted several Israeli military targets overnight, including an explosives factory located 60 kilometers away from the Lebanese border, which was attacked with Fadi rockets early in the morning. It said it had also attacked the Megiddo airfield near the northern Israeli town of Afula 3 separate times. According to the Rafiq Hariri International Airport's website, over 30 international flights to and from Beirut today were cancelled. Lebanese caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati's office said that he would fly to New York, where the United Nations General Assembly is taking place, for further contacts following the escalated wave of Israeli strikes on Lebanon yesterday. Israel's military said about 55 projectiles had crossed into Israel in the latest attacks, but the majority were intercepted and several fallen projectiles had been identified in the Upper Galilee area. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told the people of Lebanon to leave the areas where Israel is targeting Hezbollah, adding that his country is not at war with them but with the Iran-backed group. People are fleeing their homes after receiving automated calls, text messages and broadcasts urging them to evacuate. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's ambassador to Lebanon, Kapila Jayavira, confirmed that 7,600 Sri Lankans residing in the northern and central regions of Beirut are safe. He also noted that no Sri Lankans are living in the southern part of Beirut, which is considered a danger zone. Meanwhile, taking the prevailing situation into account, Sri Lanka's ambassador to Israel, Nimal Bandara, has requested Sri Lankan nationals residing in Israel to exercise caution due to recent shelling and rocket attacks from Lebanon-based militant group Hezbollah targeting Israel. He urged that Sri Lankans employed in northern zones of Israel to move to the nearest safety shelters for their protection whenever the alarm signalling such attacks are activated.
And with that, here's a look at local news across the island in brief.
The Hatton police took into their custody several private buses that had reportedly charged a higher fare than the government-mandated minimum bus fare from members of the estate community whom they were transporting from Hatton to Colombo following the presidential election. The police also arrested several bus drivers who did not carry a public transportation license. In accordance with the details obtained during the interrogation of a close associate of underworld figure Mathugama Shan named Binoy Dilshan, who was extradited to Sri Lanka after being arrested in Dubai, the Criminal Investigation Department discovered an AMD-65 type automatic firearm. It was revealed that the firearm is mainly used by the Al-Qaeda militant group. In other local news, a fishing trawler that set sail from the Kudawala Fisheries Harbour on the 21st of September has gone missing with 3 fishermen on board. 3 other fishing vessels have been dispatched to search for the missing trawler.
Star Dishwasher Dali Hell Indul Pahasuwen Sede. Star Dishwasher Magic Tub එක.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Welcome back. The overall rate of inflation as measured by the National Consumer Price Index decreased to 1.1% in August 2024 in comparison with 2.5% recorded in July this year. As per the latest data released by the Department of Census and Statistics, food inflation decreased to 2.3% in August 2024. The figure stood at 2.9% in the previous month. Meanwhile, the year-on-year inflation of the non-food group decreased to 0.2% in August 2024 from 2.2% in the previous month. The NCPI for all items for the month of August 2024 dropped to 204.1 from 206.9 recorded in July. This depicts a decrease of 2.8 in index points or 1.36% compared to July. A decrease of 0.81% in food items and of 0.55% in non-food items contributed to the month-on-month change. Now, the Colombo bourse surged 2.1% today, with retail interest in banks driving demand. The CSE All Share Price Index recorded its largest daily gain so far this year, with turnover exceeding 2 billion rupees. The All Share Price Index climbed 2.14%, settling at 11,334.12 points. The broad-based rally saw 170 stocks gain, while 20 fell. The more liquid S&P SL 20 meanwhile climbed 2.36%, ending at 3,253.22 points. The banking sector was the top contributor to the market turnover, while the capital goods sector came in second. The market was driven mostly by retail activity. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreign investors closing as net sellers. And with that, let's take a look at the rupee exchange rate for the day. And now here's a look at the corporate news segment for the day.
The Commercial Bank of Ceylon embarked on a project to plant 10,000 trees in the northern districts of Jaffna and Kilinochchi as part of the bank's countrywide effort to promote sustainability. Through this initiative, trees are to be planted in 600 acres of land owned by the University of Jaffna in Kilinochchi and Jaffna, and on certain stretches of the A9 road that run through the Kilinochchi district. The project will be executed in partnership with Green Layer, a not-for-profit and environmental organization operating in Jaffna. Meanwhile, People's Leasing and Finance plc announced the launch of the Gold Cash Card, an innovative solution available to consumers starting from the 1st of October 2024. This novel product is designed to provide customers with an ultra-convenient, flexible and secure way to leverage their gold assets for credit. The Gold Cash Card features a revolving loan facility allowing customers to borrow, repay and borrow again based on their financial needs, giving them complete control over their borrowings and credit limits. In other corporate news, ACCA Sri Lanka recently held its first successful ACCA Diploma Certificate awarding ceremony. This landmark event brought together students, educators and industry professionals to recognize and celebrate the achievements of the diploma holders. The ceremony celebrated the students' achievements while also emphasizing ACCA's crucial role in shaping the future of finance and accounting professionals in Sri Lanka.
And with that, we wrap up tonight's news. Thank you for joining us and have a good night.